the night that should have been ordinary. The music was loud enough to blur thought, neon lights washing over faces that didn't belong together, but shared the same restless search: escape. It was a Wednesday, September 13th, 2016. The kind of evening when life feels too routine to be dangerous. For 24-year-old Jackie Vandagriff, it was just that, ordinary. She had dreams as vivid as her dyed hair, soft pink one month, turquoise the next, and an energy that filled every room she entered. Jackie was studying nutrition at Texas Women's University, determined to help people live better, feel stronger, survive longer. Her social feeds were filled with healthy smoothie recipes, dog pictures, and the kind of optimism that makes people stop scrolling. She wasn't the kind of girl you expect to read about in a crime story. That night, Jackie was at Fry Street Public House in Denton, Texas, a popular college bar lined with dim amber bulbs and the sound of cheap laughter. She had come there looking for a job, but stayed for a drink. Cameras inside caught her chatting with an older man. Athletic build, dark hair, confident in the way people are when they've spent too much time looking at themselves in mirrors. His name, Charles Dean Bryant. To anyone else, he looked charming, maybe even safe. But to one young woman who knew him before, he was something far worse. Around 9 p.m., they left the bar together. The rain outside had started to drizzle, enough to make the sidewalks shine. Cameras caught Jackie getting into his white SUV. From there, the night vanished into the kind of silence that only ends in tragedy. The next morning, a jogger spotted flames near Grapevine Lake. The caller told dispatchers about a strange fire burning in the woods and a man standing near it before driving away. When firefighters arrived, the scene stopped them cold. In the warnings in plain sight. Before anyone said the word murder, another name had already been echoing through campus hallways: Caitlin Mathias. 18, freshly moved into a dorm, the kind of person who keeps her door propped open during move-in week so neighbors will stop and chat. That summer, she met Charles Bryant too, and what began as attention quickly calcified into fear. It started small: flowers delivered after arguments, long texts that arrived before sunrise, promises that came packaged as apologies. When Caitlin tried to end it, the boundary didn't hold. He appeared at her dorm. He appeared at her job. He learned places she hadn't told him about. A lieutenant on campus, calm voice, quick steps, stepped in and did what too few do. He believed her. A no trespass order. Then, when the messages kept coming, an emergency protective order. For a few days, the air felt lighter. Then he returned. By early September, Caitlin was learning a terrible rhythm: report, breathe, wait, repeat. Each time she did, officers documented the calls, the visits, the emails that slipped in from new addresses created only to bypass the blocks. She felt watched. She felt foolish for feeling watched. She went to class anyway. On the other side of town, Jackie was doing the same thing everyone else was doing: stacking textbooks, making rent, sending memes to friends, planning what came after midterms. The two young women didn't know each other. They shared a city, an age bracket, and on one ordinary night, a man with a smile that read as confident and a need for control that read as something else entirely. When firefighters found the burn site near Grapevine Lake, detectives didn't have much to hold. The rain had done its erasing. The caller remembered a white SUV and a figure near the flames. That was it. So investigators did the only thing that works when evidence is thin. They were building a lattice of small truths, sturdy enough to hold weight. A bag that wasn't his, items that shouldn't have been where they were, yard impressions that suggested something set down and then gone. None of it was conclusive alone. Together, it began to hum with coherence. Back on campus, Caitlin watched the news refresh and tried not to connect the dots her brain drew anyway. Same area, same man, same pattern. She had done everything right: reported, documented, obeyed the orders meant to keep distance. It didn't make grief easier to carry. She wasn't the reason a stranger didn't make it home. She knew that. It didn't stop the thought from arriving uninvited. By week's end, the case had shifted from who to how and why. The first question was tethered to a name. The second and third were darker, looser, the kind that can't be answered by a single report. In a small interview room, a clock ticked loud against painted cinder block. Across the table, the man who'd grinned into mirrors for years finally stopped performing long enough to exhale. "I don't remember," he said again. Detectives didn't argue. They slid a still frame across the table. Two figures under the bar's soft bulbs, caught mid-laughter, mid-night, mid-story. "Then let's start here," one of them said. "Tell us everything you do." Fire and silence. By the time dawn broke over Grapevine Lake, the fire had already burned out. The embers were faint, the ash soaked by dew. Joggers paused near the smell, a heavy metallic trace of something that didn't belong in the woods. They called it in, expecting maybe trash, maybe a campsite. Instead, it became the start of a homicide. When the remains were confirmed as Jackie Vandagriff, every piece of evidence suddenly had gravity. What had looked like coincidence now read like premeditation. The phone pings, the Walmart footage, the lies told in that calm voice. Detectives drew the line backward from the flames to the bar, from the bar to the stranger, and from the stranger to every person who had already tried to warn the world about him. Charles Bryant had once been the golden boy of his small Texas town, ex-fitness trainer, smooth talker, the kind of man who learned early that confidence could camouflage anything. But underneath the rehearsed charm, the pattern was steady. Control, rejection, retaliation. He couldn't handle no. When Caitlin got away, the wound to his ego festered. Jackie, bright and trusting, was simply the next person in reach. Inside Bryant's house, investigators found a web of contradictions. Jackie's belongings mixed with his, burned residue in his fire pit, and traces of accelerant. They found her DNA on a kitchen tool, and her phone data stopping at his address. There were scratches on his arms that he said came from a workout. None of it on its own screamed guilt, but together, the evidence painted a quiet, chilling picture of escalation. The prosecutor later called it rage disguised as romance. Bryant didn't hunt strangers in alleys. He found his victims in daylight, where trust was easy to fake. That's what made it so horrifying. The normalcy, a night out, a friendly face, a conversation that looked like every other. Smiling across the table, trusting someone who didn't deserve it. That's the tragedy of this story. Not just how it ended, but how normal it began. A bar, a smile, a stranger who looked safe, and a reminder that sometimes evil doesn't hide in the dark. It stands under the same neon lights as everyone else, waiting for someone kind enough to look back.